No borders, hence drugs and crime, exclamation point. Joining us now is Republican Congressman Charlie Dent of Pennsylvania. He's the chairman of the House Subcommittee on Veterans Affairs, and we'll get to that in a moment as well. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Alisyn. Great to be with you.
Great to have you. How do you think the president has landed at this hard line on DACA and the Dreamers after saying that he wants to treat them with love?
I'm not sure how he actually landed there, but what we simply should do, there are several DACA proposals out there that tie DACA to border security. I've asked that the House leadership allow for what's called a Queen of the Hill strategy, allow each one of those bills to be considered on the House floor, and then whichever bill passes with over 218 votes is the one that is sent to the Senate. Pretty straightforward, and then we should send the bill to the president, and I hope he signs it, but make him decide. We can easily accomplish this goal. Now, there are some Democrats, to be sure, who want the issue more than the solution. I certainly acknowledge that, but I do believe there are enough people on both sides of the aisle who will work in good faith to get a real solution to the president's desk.
But do you think that it's the Democrats' fault that DACA is dead, as he calls it?
Well, I don't want to cast blame on any one particular group. I think a lot of people have drawn lines in the sand. To a certain extent, in the House leadership has said that they don't want a bill on the House floor that will not receive a majority of the majority of the House. Now, I do believe there are 218 votes for a DACA bill. So that said, there's a lot of blame to go around here. The point is, we should have a debate, put these proposals on the floor, and see which one passes, and send it to the president and make him choose.
A couple of interesting things happened over the weekend, and it's always interesting to try to retrace where the president what the genesis of his ideas or even policy are. So Ann Coulter was quoted as basically saying that the president totally caved in the omnibus spending. By signing the omnibus spending without money for the border wall, she, who personifies his base, is leaving him and is quite disappointed. And then here's a graphic of the people that he dined with or hung out with at Mar-a-Lago. Jeanine Pirro from Fox News, Sean Hannity from Fox, Bill Shine, formerly of Fox, Don King, Bernie Kerik, Mike Lindell, who owns MyPillow. I'm not sure how he feels about DACA, but I do know that the first two are pretty hardline on immigration. So do you think that that's what's influenced him?
Well, hard to say what influenced him, but all I can say is that I supported the omnibus spending bill. I was responsible for $92.5 billion worth of it in the form of the VA and military construction funding. That said, we did exactly what President Trump and his administration wanted on defense. They wanted a robust increase, $700 billion for the Department of Defense. This is a very big win for the administration. Got exactly what they asked for.
Because the president said he couldn't stand that bill,
Well, he was part of the budget agreement that set the framework out, and his administration was part of the negotiation.
He thought it was a lousy bill, and he'll never
sign
sign another thing like that, he said.
Well, I'll tell you what, his Secretary of Defense is very happy about this situation. We did exactly pretty much what Jim Mattis wanted us to do. So it's hard to say on the one hand they appreciate what we've done for them and saying it's a terrible bill on the other. I mean, that doesn't really bode well for the future in terms of these negotiations. Hey, I'd rather not do omnibuses either. I'd rather do these bills one at a time, but the nature of the U.S. Senate doesn't allow us to do that. The Senate can't move appropriations bills quickly, so we can't negotiate them one off. But for the administration to say that, the president to say that he doesn't like this bill, well, then he should blame some of his own people because they negotiated this with us, and I think it was all done in good faith. And by the way, we provided a 10% increase for the VA in this budget.
Okay, so let's talk about the VA. So as you know, do you think that Dr. Shulkin was fired or resigned?
Oh, I believe he was pushed out. I believe he was pushed out. I've dealt quite a bit with Secretary Shulkin. He's a very fine man and a very capable administrator, but it was clear that he was pushed out. This had been going on for several weeks.
So if he was pushed out, that means that the White House is breaking protocol. There's a law that if he's fired, if the secretary is fired, his deputy must replace him, but that's not what's happening.
Well, not sure about that, but I want to give Secretary Shulkin some credit here. I've worked with him. He is, he's helped reduce backlogs. He has taken us down the road toward an integrated health record between the VA and the Department of Defense. We're making progress on that front. More veterans are being able to access care outside the VA system through choice and other community care programs, about 36%. So we made some progress, and I really enjoyed working with him. He's a very capable administrator. He's from Pennsylvania. He lives about 45 miles from me, and he's well known and well respected, and he'll be difficult to replace.
Well, he says, and he just told us a moment ago, that not only was he was fired by tweet. So listen to this.
General Kelly gave me a heads up that the president would most likely be tweeting out a message in the very near future, and I appreciated having that heads up from General Kelly.
So the tweet fired you?
Yes.
And what do you think this means for the future? Not that he was fired by tweet, but the fact that he didn't want privatization. What do you think this means for the future of the VA, Congressman?
Yeah, well, look, I think really the policy issue that probably got Secretary Shulkin in some hot water was this. I believe we need to better integrate the Veterans Health System with the civilian health system. Secretary Shulkin, through choice, was doing that. Now, the question might be the pace of that integration. I happen to believe that the VA needs to be a little bit less a direct provider of care and more of a coordinator and manager of care. Veterans where I live in Allentown, Pennsylvania, want to be cared for in the communities where they live. They don't like being schlepped up to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania for scheduled inpatient procedures 60 miles away when they can get that done right in their backyard in their communities. We need to do this. There is a sustainability question, too. On the one hand, we're trying to build all this infrastructure and capacity in the VA system to care for them within that system, and we're trying to provide choice outside the system. We are going to have to pick a path. The sustainability of this is in question. Over the long term, we must pick a path. I happen to like the choice path. Veterans should have access to the greatest healthcare institutions in the world in their communities. Too often, they are denied that unless they are admitted on an emergency basis. We educated our veterans through the civilian system of higher education. We called it the GI Bill. Hey, it worked great.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to think about that for some of our veterans.
Congressman Charlie Dent, we always
healthcare.
appreciate talking to you. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Alisyn.
John, what were your thoughts?
Charlie Dent is one of these old school centrist Republicans, and it's a shame he's retiring. You know, the party has moved towards Donald Trump and away from guys like Charlie Dent, but you could hear from that interview that he's someone who still believes in governing over grandstanding. And he also made the point that Shulkin was trying to find a middle path with regard to more choice for people in the system, but not as fast as some folks on the far right might like.
He was willing to contradict the president in the White House on 2 points. One, he said it was clear he was pushed out, that Shulkin was fired, just as he told you. You might want to believe him, as opposed to what the White House is claiming now that he resigned. But also on the issue of DACA, he says, you know, let's get him to a vote on the Hill and then make the president decide, seeming to indicate there that it's the president who's been wishy-washy on this, right? Bring a deal to his desk, we'll vote on it, and let the president sign it or not.
That would be helpful because it's hard to know today, given all of the tweets, what the president's position is on Dreamers and DACA. But we will continue to report that, Jim.